Hello and welcome to this edition of the Executive Intern Speaker Series at St. John Fisher College. My name is MacGregor Winegard and I'm currently working as the Executive Intern with the Office of Institutional Advancement. The Executive Intern Speaker Series aims to give students the opportunity to speak with successful professionals in the field that they're interested in pursuing. The Executive Internship Program at St. John Fisher College offers students interested in gaining a broader understanding of executive leadership and higher education the opportunity to experience it firsthand. As part of the internship, students work with college leadership, collaborate with fellow interns, participate in networking opportunities, and more. For further information about the Executive Internship Program or St. John Fisher College, please visit sjfc.edu. Today, I am joined by Ms. Jeanne Foster Zukowski. Ms. Zukowski graduated from St. John Fisher College in 1986 with a BS in mathematics and concentrations in anthropology and actuary. After graduation, Ms. Zukowski worked as an actuarial analyst for Farm Family Insurance before becoming a software engineer working on actuarial software with IBM. After leaving IBM, Ms. Zukowski worked as an actuarial consultant for Cognizant and Accenture. I'm especially excited to speak with Ms. Zukowski today, as I'm a fellow math major and we're both very big fans of Dr. Minch. We've had a pleasure getting to know each other and converse so far, and I hope you guys enjoy hearing her story as much as I have. So Ms. Zukowski, welcome to the speaker series.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. It's good to have you. So just starting off a little bit, I know, like I said, you are an alumni of the college. So would you want to just tell us a little bit about how you got to Fisher and what your experience was like here?
Sure. When I was in high school, I worked at a fast food restaurant called Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips, which I don't think exists anymore. This is really dating myself. But one of the gals I worked with there had a friend who was a student at St. John Fisher. So we would go out after work and have get-togethers and things like that. And I got to meet her. And I'd never heard of St. John Fisher, honestly. I was from the Capital District. Our similar St. John Fisher College was Siena, which was pretty much where I lived in Troy. So I was pretty close. I didn't want to go to Siena, though, because my sister was at Siena, and I didn't really want to hang out with my sister. I wanted to get away from, everything. So she just told me about the college, where it was. I'd never been to Rochester. And when we had in Albany, they had a big college fair. So they had all the booths. And I remember talking to Maura about that. And so I just went over to the booth, and there was a gal in there that didn't normally do the booths. It wasn't part of her job. She was from the financial aid office, I believe. And I can't even remember her name, but she was just so nice to me. She, and so I came home from the fair, and there were some other colleges I was interested in. But I told my dad about St. John Fisher. He, of course, had heard of it. He was a teacher. So we, drove up. And my parents stayed overnight in a hotel, and I stayed overnight in the dorm in Kearney, which is, we were talking earlier about that. And it was in March, I remember, because the Academy Awards, the Oscars, were on that night. So we hung out and watched that. I don't think I slept at all, though. I was just really excited. And when I got to the financial aid office, we talked about what's available. Because being a teacher, my dad had 4 kids in college at the same time. So we needed to either get financial aid or scholarships. And I don't remember what the scholarship was called, but it pretty much paid for my tuition. And then I just had to come up with money for room and board and books and things like that. So I had some other small scholarships, and pretty much I was on scholarship. Plus I, maxed out the student loans that you could get back then. But it was the first, and I wanted to be a computer science major, and I wasn't even sure if St. John Fisher offered that in 1986, but they did. In fact, it was 82, which would have been the year I entered. That was the first year they even had that major. And so all the courses were taught by the math professors. So that's what I started as, computer science major. But yeah, I worked in a fast food restaurant, worked with a gal who had a friend that went to Fisher, and I don't know, most of the things in life we don't have any control over, and that's a good thing, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how I got there.
Cool. So then you get to Fisher, and you said you came in as a computer science major, and then at some point you found your way over to math. So what was that like? My freshman year, I loved my math classes, but Fortran was the first programming language I learned, and I loved it. It's very mathematical, Fortran.
but then I took Pascal the second semester, and I had the same professor for both. And I told him, I really don't like this Pascal at all. It's frustrating and drives me crazy. And I got all these errors, and you had to put a semicolon at the end of every stupid sentence. I don't even know if they teach Pascal anymore, but he told me that was a very telling thing, that might not want to continue with computer science, because I definitely didn't want to code all day long. I like to code. It's helpful has been helpful in my career, but I just didn't want to do it all day long. I think you probably know by now I'm an extrovert. So I think the solo working alone just didn't appeal to me. You didn't really work with the team, and I of course enjoyed that. So that's why I switched to math. And I didn't even have to stay an extra semester or anything, because the first 2 years, I believe at the time, the computer science and math majors had the same curriculum.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was not a problem. And even dropping a course, I didn't lose credits, because some of my courses were extra credits if they had a lab or something. But I didn't have to do any extra, didn't have to take like 6. I always had 5 courses, which was enough. I mean, my kids they got double degrees, and they were taking 6 and 7 and 8 courses a semester. And
wow,
they didn't get that from me, MacGregor, because I was a solid 5 course. That's, do it well, don't take on too much. And of course, live in the Lavery library in the math section. That's where I was 5 hours a night, Monday through Thursday. Sunday through Thursday, not on Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
Had to go to, I don't even know what the bars are there anymore. I mean, we always were in the bars on Friday and Saturday night. Checo's was open when I was there. I don't know if you ever even heard of that bar. Closed in 1985. And then there was another one called Patham's. These were in East Rochester. I don't even, but remember when I started college, it was 18. Drinking age was 18.
Okay.
So they, orientation week, they pulled up the beer trucks at every event we had. And so it's so different now.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, is there even a pub on campus anymore?
No, we don't know. Carney is now, they have a little kitchen in the back, but it's definitely not, the campus club is gone.
Yep. Gosh. And then it changed to 19. So I was 18 when it was 18. Then I was 19 when it was 19. My roommate was younger than me, so she was legal for like a month. So I remember we went to this liquor store and got a grocery shopping size cart. We just bought all this liquor, and we thought we'd be set for the year. But a week later,
no,
cool. we had some parties in our dorm rooms. I don't even know what goes on campus anymore. Do you still have the Olympics?
No, we don't have the Olympics anymore now. Teddy is the big thing, as we've talked about. Fisher Fever. I don't know if that was a thing when you were here, but Fisher Fever is a big one.
No, I don't remember that.
No, okay. That's like a spring fest kind of.
Oh.
So.
Okay. Yeah, we always had the Olympics.
Okay.
Which I'm a huge sports fan, but I've got 2 left feet and no coordination. People because I'm almost 6 foot tall. So people are, oh, you must play basketball. I'm like, no, I was in the stands. And Purdue is #1 for the first time.
That's awesome.
History. Woo!
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. I'm taking us off track here.
No, you're good. You're good. So you get to Fisher, and do you have any classes that you like, especially remember any professors that you were, really fond of?
Yes. All my math professors. So freshman year, I had Dr. Rackover, and he has since left us to go to better place. He looked intimidating. He's this great big guy, Russian guy, and he had a thick Russian accent. And he was just wonderful. He hugged all the students. He used to call me Janichka instead of Jean. He just made it Russian. He said he just liked that better, so he'd call me that. Yeah, he was terrific. I had him for calculus. And then I had Dr. Arpaia. I didn't have him until my sophomore year.
Okay. So
I think I had Dr. Rackover for calculus and Calc 2. And then Calc 3 was my sophomore year. That was Dr. Arpaia. He was so hard. I got a 15 out of 100 on his first exam. And it was a C, if you can believe that. So I think the highest person got the person that got the he never gave A's if you didn't truly get an A, but I think he gave A- was the highest grade, and they got like 30 out of 100. So, but I learned so much from him, and I'm very passionate about math now because of Dr. Arpaia. He kind of called me out on it my sophomore year. He said, "You're just too cavalier about math. You're good at it, you're talented at it, but you just don't love it like you should love it." So yeah, I had a lot of classes with him. My favorite math class was abstract algebra.
Okay.
Is that still on the curriculum that you
Yeah,
have to take?
I'm taking that right now with Dr. Minch. I just got out of it about an hour ago, so it's
Yeah,
very much taking it.
I don't know why. My other friends that were math majors with me, they were ahead of me one year. Sorry, I think I took that my sophomore year, maybe. No, junior. It's completely irrelevant, but I just want to make sure my mind is still sharp. You go into retirement, it's awesome, but you don't remember anything. They hated it. They're like, how can you like this? This is like weird stuff that you'll never use. But I think that's what I liked about it. So my favorite math classes were the theoretical, not the applied. So like probability and statistics, which is huge in actuarial. It was okay, I could do it, but it was number theory, abstract algebra, discrete structures that was required for both computer science and math majors. But yeah, probably who I had the most for math was Dr. Arpaia, if you can believe that, because I'm really close to Dr. Mensch. And when I went to my 30th reunion, I was trying to think how many classes I had with him. And my husband had just asked me that before I left to go back to Rochester. And I was having a tough time thinking, like, I think I only had 2. Like, it couldn't be. But as the day wore on, I came up with more classes, and Dr. Mensch helped me. He goes, "No, I think you were in my numerical analysis class. I think you were in this." I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I was in those classes." So yeah, once I switched, so sophomore year, I decided I just can't do this computer science. I don't think I ever took assembler. I remember talking to Professor LaBeouf about it, and I never took a class with her. So my gang that I hung out with, which was computer science majors and math majors, do you guys do that too, MacGregor?
Yeah, we definitely have a cohort.
Yeah. We would hang out with her in her office or whatever, and I was petrified to take assembler because, and have you taken that? Do they even teach it anymore?
I've definitely not taken it. I don't know if they teach it anymore now.
Yeah, it's a machine language basically.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Everything is, it's the bytes, it's the zeros and the ones. So it's so low that it takes like four pages of code to add 1 + 1. I mean, it's just it's 0 and 1. So, and I was going to take COBOL, but it wasn't required because that's businesses. Although in today's world, there's still a lot of systems in COBOL, and COBOL programmers make buku bucks because all the graduates are Java, C, even C++ and C++ are kind of, old school now. So everything's in Java, and even newer languages that have come out that I don't know. So, yep, I had some great professors. They were my favorites. I had a favorite anthropology professor too. So that was not a requirement, but someone told me this teacher was really good, Dr. D'Agostino. And I'm like, oh, okay. I've always been interested in where we came from, evolution, all that stuff. So I took his basic course and I just loved him. He was such a good teacher, and I met some really cool people. And, I loved my math circle, but it's good to be outside. A lot of management and accounting majors are at Fisher. And, they have their big cliques and stuff, but I got to meet another smaller group of people. There weren't a lot of anthropology majors. So I got to meet them. They were kind of interesting group of people. And so you have to take electives. So I just kept taking anthropology. That's why I have that, concentration in it. I think you had to have 5 courses, I think, at the time to have a concentration.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
So I have I sent you this, and for the people at home, sorry, wrong. I have a quick slideshow here. I was perusing through the old yearbooks and I
Oh
found
my.
some pictures. So we got the math department here.
Yep, that's Dr. Arpaia. And then
Uh-huh.
to the I guess his left is Dr. Rackover. That's the Russian guy, Dr. Mensch.
Uh-huh.
I remember the professor next to Mensch. He was a computer science major for the most part.
Okay.
Computer science instructor.
Okay.
And I just can't remember his name because I never had him in class.
Hmm.
The guy right below him is Dr. Blanton, and I do not believe that he's at Fisher anymore. I had several courses with him. He was, I just didn't click with him. He was a good teacher. I learned a lot from him, but I just didn't have that relationship that I did with Dr. Mensch and Dr. Arpaia and Dr. Rackover. And then Father P, that wonderful man, he was 100 when I was there, I think, MacGregor. I don't think he's around anymore. He was the head of the math department.
Oh, really?
I don't know how many classes he taught, but every math major knew him. He was very, very short. So he was just a wonderful man, just wonderful. And then that's Professor LaBeouf. We called her Liz. I just called her Liz when we were there. She's a fantastic teacher. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about her. And I've had classes with her just because I was with her all the time. My gang was with her. So I got to know her really well. Wonderful person. Wow, that's a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
Where did you get those from? My yearbook?
So these are, I went through the 84, 85, and 86 yearbooks. So we got
my
Dr.
goodness.
Mensch.
Dr. Mensch.
He still has great hair. He
does. He does.
Professor LaBeouf.
I had a picture of him. We went out my senior year, computer science, and I had no money. Like at first I said, no, I can't go. And Dr. Mensch said, why can't you go? We just went to a lunch. It was at the Yellow Rose Cafe, which I think they tore down. And I said, I don't have any money. I didn't have any money. I didn't have $2. And he said, it's all right. I'll pick up your lunch this time. And then when you're out in the world making all that money, you can come and take me out to a grand meal. And so all these years, it bothered me. I never got back to see him. So on the 30th reunion, we made dinner plans. The whole group of us went out, and I finally got to pay Dr. Mensch back from that lunch that he bought me when I had no money. I was a very poor college student.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's what he kind of looked like that.
Yeah.
When teaching, he was great. He was always up at the board. There she is.
He was Professor LaBeouf, Dr. Arpaia.
I lived in Dr. Arpaia's office. I was just in there all the time. And oh my goodness, Dr. Rackover. Yeah.
And then the anthropology department as well.
Yeah, Dr. D'Agostino's in the middle.
Okay.
And yep. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, sorry, we got that too. So
wow. All those perms in the 80s.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Very good. So I know. So you're leaving school, and you said you weren't really sure exactly what you want to do, and someone pushed you into actuary.
Yeah, it was Dr. Arpaia.
Okay.
At my sophomore year, this was in the same conversation, I think, where he told me I was cavalier about math.
Okay.
And he said, well, what are you going to do with your degree? And I said, well, I know I'm not going to teach because my dad was a teacher and we were poor and I just didn't want to be poor. Although my DNA, everything about me is, I somehow weaseled my way into getting some kind of a teaching project going at every place I've ever worked. I've always volunteered to teach newcomers the system. And then we formalized it in my tenure at Accenture. So I finally, it was a good time to retire. I finally got to build my university where I built all the classes and gave Accenture something really powerful for their, the sale of their system. But I didn't want to teach because back then I think teachers, I looked into what a math teacher at a Catholic school would make, and it was $9,000 a year.
Okay.
So I couldn't live on that. So we just, I just didn't do it.
Okay.
But Dr. Arpaia said, well, why don't you be an actuary? And I'm like, what the heck is that? He said, you don't know what an actuary is? And I said, never heard the word in my life. So he reached over to his shelf and pulled off this little pamphlet on actuarial exams, and they had some sample exams in there. And he said, well, you just take these 10 exams. It's kind of like getting your PhD. or your law degree or CPA or one of those things, he said, and then you just make a lot of money. And every time you pass an exam, they give you more money. And I said, oh, and he's the one that mentioned that. And he said, it's not gender specific,
Okay.
and I really grabbed onto that because I knew, and it's still even happening today, hopefully less. And I came from a company, I retired from Accenture. They have a CEO, Julie Sweet. She's one of the top in the world. And I worked my last 15 years, I worked in a culture that was awesome for females. But coming through, even at IBM, you just didn't make as much as men, even though you're doing the same or even more experienced work. And so the actuarial profession, working for an insurance company, the salaries were based on how many exams you had. And then you passed another exam, you got more money. You immediately got a raise by passing an exam. So you could get a raise twice a year just because you passed the exam. So awesome. That was very appealing to me because I knew it was a struggle.
Yeah. No, you said you were the only female math graduate the year you graduated?
Yeah, female math major. I think there were 4, and one of them was his major was chemistry, but he majored in math too because he had enough credits.
Okay.
So he's a chemistry teacher. I think he's at RIT, professor. I think he's got his PhD. He's I think he's at RIT. His name's Joe Lanzafame. I think that's where he is. And I've kept in touch with him off and on over the years. But I was always mad at him, MacGregor, because I had the highest GPA of the math majors, except for Joe, who took it as, what the heck, I might as well just get the math. He was a little above me. So I was always yelled at him for that, even walking down for the graduation ceremony. They still have those outside?
No, they actually have it at where the Rochester Amherst, the hockey rink, Blue Cross.
Oh, wow.
Like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. We did our march all outside on the campus, and then I think we went and had it in the gym, the auditorium there.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't even know if it's been rebuilt, torn down or rebuilt, but we had it in there where the basketball games were. Yeah.
It's been updated, but it looks like it's about the same. And I know you also said you had the highest starting salary of all graduates from your year as well. So that's awesome. That's a really great accomplishment.
I'm saying that because they told me they wanted me to go to this meeting for new students or potential new students to talk about, I was still a senior, I hadn't graduated yet, but I had my job. And so it was the career development. I know you've rattled off the name of that department to me a couple of times, but so they said, well, we want you here because you have the highest paying job of our graduates, all our graduates, not just math, but all of them. And whopping 25,000 a year. Crazy, huh? But I thought I was rich. We grew up, we weren't middle class. My parents were both in noble professions. My mom was a registered nurse and my dad was a teacher. But so I guess we're not considered blue collar, but we were poorer than blue collar. We just, I didn't realize how poor we were, though. Isn't that funny? So I went to St. John Fisher and met all these rich kids.
Yeah, I think definitely coming to Fisher and kind of getting out of your hometown, definitely for anybody, it kind of gives you a different perspective for sure, getting out of your bubble. So you left Fisher and then you worked as an actuary for a couple of years. So what was that like? And then how did that lead you over to IBM?
So I was actually an actuary taking exams for 10 years, 11 years. And then, I got married, right out of college the next year. So, it was easy taking the exams and, I had the time to study. And then we started our family, and then it got harder to, work full time, take care of a baby, and study for my exams. So my progress slowed down. I was passing like maybe one exam a year instead of one every 6 months. And then I had my kids very close together. I had all 3 of them in a 4-year window. And so every baby that got added, it got harder and harder to study. So it was crazy back then. But I was in the insurance industry, working at an insurance company. My first job was at the Hartford in Connecticut. Okay. And then I moved back to the Capital District because my husband thought it would be nice if we could live together after we got married. So he was working for General Electric at the time. He was making plastic. He worked in Selkirk. Okay. So I moved back. I didn't have a job. I there's a ton of actuarial positions in, Connecticut, right? The insurance capital of the world in Hartford, but I really struggled getting an actuarial position in Albany. So this little company, Farm Family, in Glenmont, New York, they right there off 787. I know you're familiar with the Capital District because from Clifton Park, but yep, it's been recently in the last 15 years, it's been bought out by American National. But I saw a little ad in the paper back when we had papers, we didn't do everything online. And I went and interviewed, and they brought me on board, and my salary was less than I was making at the Hartford, but a lot more than I was working at a bank for, just because I couldn't get another job. And then, so I spent a decade at Farm Family, and, where I was passing my exams. And then when I had my third child, I couldn't do it. My husband worked shifts, so I was kind of a single parent a lot of the time. It just was impossible to work full time, take care of 3 babies, and study. I was still taking the exams though, and, closely getting to passing, but I finally just said, I have to stop for a while until my kids are, in school and I can pick up studying again. But before that happened, my boss came to me and said, because I didn't get all the actuarial cool projects like creating a product, pricing a product, developing a product. So he said, I know you have an IT background because you can program. He said, I need someone to put a system in, the new system in, and I need you to work with IT. So I did that for 2 years. We went live, and we bought the system from IBM. So that's how I got to IBM. My representative, she said, you guys are live. You did such a good job. And I'm like, I don't want to go back to my old job. Can I come and work for IBM? And they flew me up there literally the next day. They flew me up there, offered me a job, doubled my salary. And that was in Indianapolis. So, yep. And, I got the job and told my husband, and it was great. IBM, Accenture's the same way. When you get jobs, they offer your spouse assistance with finding another job. So they have a professional firm, do the resume, and really, it's just one of the benefits that those large companies do. And IBM did that for my husband. So he went to work for Eli Lilly. So still chemical work, just not making plastic, instead making insulin for diabetics. So, and Eli Lilly is one of the biggest companies out of Indianapolis. So that seemed the best place for him to go. So anyway, and then IBM sold our system. So I went to work for a small vendor, and that was really bad time. I got laid off. Early 2000, everyone had just bought their life insurance admin systems. And so there weren't sales, and it was difficult. So I never thought I'd be laid off as an actuary. That was another thing Dr. Arpaia had told me. You'll never not have a job. You'll have your choice of jobs, which is true, except that time was really tough. So then I got a job in another consulting firm, Fiserv, out of Cedar Rapids. They had a life insurance admin system, and they had a growth they weren't following the industry. They just had this crazy growth. So I ended up there. And then I had a recruiter actually that brought me into that. He, a friend of mine at IBM was an administrative person. She called me and said, Jeanne, this guy's a great recruiter. He's recruited a lot for us for IBM. I think you should call him. His name was Jack Edwards. And I called him up, and he said, oh yeah, we're hiring, like my company client is hiring like crazy. So he came to Indianapolis and interviewed a lot of us that were laid off from IBM. And I got the job. And so I didn't have to move, because when you're in consulting, you can kind of live wherever you want. You just have to travel a lot for work. So I stayed at Fiserv, really liked it. And then he called me up around 4 years later, and my recruiter, Jack, and I'm like, oh, I love my job, Jack, I'm not interested. And he said, well, Cognizant's looking for an actuary. I think you'll really like them. Just go to the interview. So that was in Teaneck, New Jersey. And I'm like, what the heck? I'll take a day off of work and go. They offered me an awesome position. And I left Fiserv. I
Hmm.
It was one of the hardest jobs to leave because I really like the people. I love the work. It wasn't a huge place like IBM. It was a lot of family members worked there. I got to meet the person who designed a lot of that system that they owned. And she was a female. It was just so nice to, she was really ahead of her time. She was in her 70s when I met her, and she'd been working since she was in her 20s in that field. And so got to really experience a lot there. So it was hard for me to leave Fiserv. But then I went to Cognizant, and about 2 years after I landed at Cognizant, Jack called me. Jeanne, Accenture's looking for actuaries. And I said, Jack, come on, you got to leave me alone for at least a couple more years, right? And he said, I think you're really going to like this group. And I said, oh, Jack, he goes, they're in New Jersey too. And I'm like, I really hate the Newark airport. I don't want to fly down there. So he talked me into it. He was a good talker. And and my first interview, I stopped the interview during the interview process.
Oh, really?
Because the position that the recruiter had described to me was not what I was hearing in the interviews from people. And it was to implement a system, be a product lead on an implementation. And I'm like, I don't want to implement anymore. I want to work on the base asset. I want to make sure the base asset is high quality, that we have, when new insurance regulations come out, I want to make sure they get incorporated properly. I want to keep the system on the cutting edge. And but I think the fourth person I started interviewing with, I said, can I go back to the HR person who was kind of had my day laid out for me? And I said, Steve, I want to stop the interviews. I don't want to waste any more of your time. This is not what I'm looking for. There must've been a miscommunication with the recruiter. So, he, called they always bring in a limo, called the car, and they picked me up, and he said, well, keep us in mind.
Okay.
And so a year later, he called me again. He said, we really want to interview you. And I've taken notes on what you're looking for, and we're going to create that position for you. We really want you on board. So left Cognizant, went to Accenture, and stayed there for, I was in my 14th year. So yeah, just a great company to work for. It was, the technology was cutting edge. The support system was incredible. I mean, when you leave high school and you're like the smartest person in high school. I went to a Catholic high school.
I don't know. I'd never do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So then you get to college, and then you start meeting other people that are smart, and you're like, oh, I'm not the smartest person anymore. And, which is really good for you to go through, because it just chops you down, makes you humble, realize. And then you go to a company like Accenture or IBM. Everybody was the, top in their class. And so the difference between, for me, IBM and Accenture was the culture. IBM was, every person's on their own, very entrepreneurial. But at Accenture, it was a lot of Accenture's big fame is teamwork. So I did a lot of recruiting for Accenture. It was just something that I volunteered to do because I loved being on campus. So I would recruit at Purdue for them. And one of the biggest things we wanted to get out of the interviews with the students, these were for internships and also for jobs. So I was talking to juniors at Purdue and seniors, and we wanted to hear them talk about being on a team, because Accenture is such a team-oriented place. So you're never alone. So I remember my first client meeting. I'm like terrified. I didn't know the system that well yet. And I don't know why I was terrified, because there were people in the room who were very discreet, but they helped you without it looking like you didn't know what the heck you were doing.
Interesting.
It's just an incredible place to work, Accenture, really. And being a female, they're very big on that. They want to make sure that they have a good representation of, IBM was, I was probably there was one other female actuary, and the rest were all male.
Oh, really?
But at Accenture, it was just more open to females. And I don't know, it was just a great place to work. I miss them terribly. They still call me and I help them. But I worked on so much over 15 years, right? So they call me about a client that I implemented or something like that. So yeah, great company to work for. I don't know if you already have accepted a position, MacGregor, but that's a company you want to keep in your back pocket.
Okay.
In the future. So
good to know. Yeah, I have accepted a position, but I will definitely keep that in mind in the future. But so as you're saying, you've now transitioned into the retirement phase of your life. So how, a little bit more about Fisher, what is your life like as an alumni? Are you still kind of connected to your roommates? And then also, what do you hope to accomplish in this next stage of life?
Well, I want to do a lot of philanthropic work that I've not been able to do. So one of the things that I really wanted to do about 20 years ago, I got introduced to a group out of Indianapolis called the Indy Reads. They teach illiterate adults how to read. So these adults can write their name, sign something, and so they know letters and everything, but they can't comprehensively write. And so and there's a lot of adults, that have been successful in their jobs, but they are embarrassed because they don't know how to read and write. So I really want to do that, but it's just a very big commitment. And with my consulting, I worked about 80 hours a week. So it was very difficult, to do that. And my kids were still, at home and all that. So I want to do that. The other thing that I'm looking into is volunteering at in Knoxville at the Children's Hospital for the NICU babies. My first granddaughter was born at 28 weeks. And so I just have so much passion about the nurses and the people that work in that unit. It's just incredible that this little teeny 3-pound baby survived, and she's 7 and she's tall and smart. And, she just came into the world, really scary stuff. So my son was getting his PhD at Purdue at the time when she was born. So she was born in a very small hospital outside the Purdue campus in Lafayette, Indiana. And a lot of the babies were born prematurely. No one came to visit them. They were kind of abandoned. They were drug addicted moms, or, just no one came to see these babies that were just, working so hard to live. They had all kinds of medical issues. And so I want to do that. I want to rock the babies. I just, I don't know, special place in my heart for that. I might consult, but right now I don't want to do it. My company, they just got the annual bonuses, and I didn't think I'd get one because I was retiring, but they said, oh, no, you're not leaving to go to a competitor. You are retiring and all your contributions. And it was a huge bonus, MacGregor, crazy huge, biggest bonus I'd gotten in 15
Congratulations.
years.
That's awesome.
So that's another thing great about that company. I mean, then bonuses are really to incent you to stay. They want to make sure they reward you for the great work you do, but they also want to make sure you're happy and that you're well paid. So they knew I was retiring. I mean, so when they made the decision about, how much to give each person, and I just didn't believe it. I just got it on Monday and I'm like,
oh, it sounds like they want you back. That's what I'm hearing.
So I think that, maybe that had a little something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I keep in touch with people. So I'm still in touch with people from grade school, from high school. My roommate that they put us together because we were both computer science majors, Stella, I never would have met her if they didn't do that. And we stayed in the same hall, Ward Hall, which I think is it's guys and gals now.
Now it's
all
guys and
females
gals,
at the time. Half was where the guys were.
Okay.
And so Stella was my roommate freshman year, and we had a third roommate, and she dropped out of college. She just didn't like it. But Stella and I roomed together. We stayed on the 3rd floor of Ward Hall for all 4 years. Do you still have the lottery there where you get to choose which room you want? Do you guys still have that?
It's based on who has its credits is the preferential thing. And then you get a time slot and you can pick one. Yep.
So Estella always got the best lottery number. So she would always get us the room we wanted. And yeah, I mean, pretty boring, huh? But I still keep in touch with Stella. I went to her wedding. She was in my wedding. I talked her into going to the 30th reunion.
Okay.
So I got to see her. I saw her a few times over the years. She came to visit me when my kids were little and we lived in New York. And then she got married. I married another Fisher grad.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. Okay.
Someone she tutored, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he's a podiatrist now, but she tutored
Okay.
him in math. Yeah.
Cool.
And he's actually Dr. Mensch's son, Dave. It's his best friend.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, I mean, even more reason to keep in touch with each other
Yeah,
because we have that connection. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's been awesome. I know one of the things you asked me about, I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but was, what would I say to, graduates
Yeah,
and starting
definitely.
their career? I would say never fake it. There's that expression, fake it until you make it.
Okay.
And don't do that,
Huh.
because in my first job, I didn't know what I was doing, and they knew I didn't know what I was doing because I was brand new out of college.
Mm.
I knew actuarial calculations, I was passing the exams, but I didn't. It was such a scary feeling to me that I didn't know what I was doing, because like, I'm always prepared.
Hmm.
I never went into a test where I didn't study really hard. I didn't always pass every test, but I prepared myself as best I could. But you get caught so soon and so quickly, and it's so damaging to your reputation. That happened to me at the Hartford. I went and talked to my boss about it. He said, Jeanne, we know you don't know what you're doing. We expect you to not know what you're doing. Don't try to, bluff your way through it. And I see it in new hires.
Hmm.
I see it in them, and I call them out right away. I said, no, I don't expect you to know a thing. In fact, I don't expect you to know anything. I said, so don't try to bluff your way through it. And I would call them out on it. And I'm grateful that I got called out on it, because it gave me permission to not know what I was doing,
Hmm.
which was new for me. And as a college grad, especially as a math major, you instantly have celebrity. When you tell people you have a you're a math major, that your BS is in math, how do people react? Do they change their reaction?
Oh, yeah, I definitely got to, oh, you must be really smart, or, you must be really good at math. And honestly, I'm kind of bad at counting because I have short-term memory issues. So it's,
But it's true. I mean, once I was sitting on a plane up to Minneapolis. I had a client up there for 4 years. I flew up there every week, and I just happened to be on the flight back from Indianapolis. It was the Gophers, Minnesota
oh,
Gophers
okay, okay.
team, and I was right in the middle of the whole team. Really, I mean, I got on a flight, an earlier flight, and so
Oh,
that's
okay.
the seat, a middle seat, and all these baseball players. And so their star pitcher asked me, what are you doing on the plane? And I said, well, I'm flying up to my client. It was Sunday night, and they had played a bunch of games at Purdue. I think they were
Oh,
Big
okay,
Ten,
okay.
Big Ten. So he said, oh, well, what do you do? I said, well, I'm an actuary. And he's like, I don't know what that is.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, I have a degree in math. I'm a mathematician. The guy's whole demeanor changed. He stood up and he yelled to every guy on the team, this lady's a math person. She's a mathematician. Like, and it's just so awesome to get celebrity status,
Being a math major, yeah,
Oh
definitely.
yeah. Yeah. So I always joke that I don't tell people I'm an actuary until I have to pull it out, because they're not
Mhm.
listening to me. Well, I'm an like, even at my clients, I was questioning their product. That doesn't make sense. It works that way.
Mhm.
Mathematically, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, who are you?
Mm.
And I said this to a guy in a meeting, didn't like me at all. I said, well, I'm an actuary, so I know how things work. And he said, you're an actuary?
Mm.
He just thought I was a consultant.
Mm.
So immediately he respected everything I had to say after that. Isn't that sad that
It
I
is,
had
it
to
is sad,
pull
yeah.
that out? But yeah, so if you're a math major and you're leaving, or graduating, use it. Use that and be true to yourself and be honest. Don't try to fake it. It's just a career killer. It's I would say, a career killer.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with saying, can you help me? I don't know how to do this at all. It's expected, and kind of we call you out on that when we know that you have no idea what you're doing and you're just bluffing. It's just,
Mm.
don't do it. It's just a bad thing to do for your career. So
Good to
All
know.
right, MacGregor, I've talked your ear off.
It's all good. Listen, this is now, I guess, the third conversation we've had, and every time there's always some new, tidbit I pick up. You've had a really amazing career and a really amazing life. It's so cool to hear about your time at Fisher. Like I said earlier, I was perusing the yearbook, so it was a really cool kind of history project for me to see, what the school was like, back in the 80s. But yeah, no, thank you so much for telling your story and for being so great, generous with your time. It's been awesome to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. And if you ever, need anything or need to network with somebody, I'm pretty well connected on LinkedIn. So,
Okay.
and I know we
noticed that, yeah.
connected. So, yeah, be glad to help you out, fellow, alum. My boys both got really good jobs, Purdue,
Okay.
because they graduated from Purdue. And so not a lot of folks know where St. John Fisher is across the country. But I mean, even when I was abroad, I had a Purdue shirt on. They went, boiler up, so
Yeah.
it's world known. I don't know that St. John Fisher is, but yeah, it's good to talk to alumni. They can help you connect. And if you know of anybody else that's looking to go into actuarial, I'd be glad to talk to them.
Okay, that's awesome. I do have a couple of people in mind, so I'll definitely pass them along. I chose Fisher because the alumni network is so strong, so it's really awesome to hear you say that. So, well, anyways,
Indeed.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, MacGregor. Have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
All right, take care.